The Galactic Concorde's flagship, Luminara, drifted through the quiet black of space, its smooth silver hull reflecting the distant glow of Earth's sun. Captain Velik sat at the helm, his translucent blue skin glinting under the dim lights of the command chamber. Before him, a holographic projection of Earth spun lazily, a green and blue marble encased in swirling white clouds. "This is the Deathworld?" Velik asked, his voice laced with skepticism. "Yes, Captain," replied Salthra, the science officer. Her tentacle-like appendages manipulated a console, feeding data to the main display. Classified as Deathworld 7 under Concorde codices. Hazardous atmosphere, extreme weather, hostile wildlife, and, she hesitated, an unusually resilient sentient species. The term Deathworld wasn't used lightly. Planets like Terra bred beings of unmatched ferocity, hardened by environments where survival was never guaranteed. In the vast history of the Concorde, few Deathworld species had achieved spacefaring status, and even fewer had joined the galactic community. Terra's inhabitants, however, had not even left their own solar system. "They are primitive," scoffed Counselor Treval, a visiting dignitary who had joined the mission. "Look at their structures. Fragile. Their technology is laughably outdated. They still rely on combustion for energy, and their most advanced weaponry cannot even breach our shields." Salthra frowned but said nothing. The humans' technological backwardness wasn't the issue. It was their unpredictability. She had combed through intercepted broadcasts, fragments of human history, snippets of their culture, and what she found was troubling. Their existence was a tapestry of resilience, conflict, and adaptation. Primitive or not, Salthra warned, this species has survived on a planet where nearly everything is designed to kill them. They've thrived in conditions that would annihilate most Concorde species. Underestimating them would be unwise. Treval waved a dismissive hand. They're violent because they lack discipline. Their wars are the tantrums of children. A united Concorde fleet will pacify them within days. Assuming they don't surrender outright, added Captain Velik. Activate the declaration beacon. Let them know the Concorde is here. With a solemn nod, Salthra initiated the broadcast. A powerful signal swept over Earth, hijacking every device capable of receiving transmissions. The holographic message featured Treval's commanding visage, his deep green eyes staring directly into the cameras. "People of Terra," he began, his voice resonating across countless screens, "you have been deemed a threat to the stability of the Galactic Concorde. Your history of conflict and unchecked aggression cannot be ignored. We offer you a choice. Submit to Concorde governance peacefully, or face the consequences of your defiance." The broadcast ended, plunging Earth into a stunned silence. For a moment, the planet seemed to hold its breath. Then humanity responded. In the dimly lit Situation Room of the United Nations headquarters, chaos reigned. Heads of state shouted over one another as the broadcast replayed on an enormous screen at the front of the room. "What the hell was that?" demanded President Alvarez of the North American Alliance. "A declaration of war," replied General Okoye of the African Union, her voice calm but steely. "They think we're just going to roll over. They have ships in orbit," shouted another representative. "Their technology, did you see the hologram? They could wipe us out in minutes." "Perhaps," Okoye replied, "but they haven't. If they wanted us dead, we'd already be gone. This isn't an extermination. It's a threat, and threats can be countered." The room quieted as the reality of the situation sank in. Humans were vastly outmatched technologically, but surrender was not in their nature. "Recommendations?" Alvarez asked. "Unite," Okoye said simply. "Share resources, knowledge, and intelligence. Forget borders. We're fighting for our species now." Aboard the Luminara, the Concorde officers watched Earth's response with mounting confusion. Instead of chaos and surrender, there was coordination. Entire continents seemed to mobilize within hours. Networks flickered back online, and encrypted communications buzzed across the globe. "They're organizing," Velik observed. Treval frowned. "So they're stubborn. Change is nothing. Prepare the fleet for planetary suppression." but Salthra felt a chill ripple through her. This wasn't stubbornness. It was strategy. Humanity wasn't panicking. They were adapting. As the Concorde fleet descended into Earth's atmosphere, Salthra's unease grew. The humans weren't just enduring the threat. They were preparing to fight back. And for the first time in her career, Salthra began to wonder if the Galactic Concorde had just made the gravest mistake in its history. The first Concorde strike was clinical and efficient. High-energy disruptor beams swept Earth's orbit, disabling satellites and severing global communications. Pulses of electromagnetic interference rendered military hardware useless across continents. Within hours, Earth's skies were dominated by sleek Concorde warships, their reflective hulls shimmering as they blocked out the sun. From orbit, it looked like victory. On the ground, it was anything but. In a bombed-out city square, Captain Elena Torres wiped soot from her face and surveyed her surroundings. Smoke billowed from collapsed buildings, and the acrid stench of burning metal filled the air. Around her, civilians, farmers, students, office workers scrambled to assemble barricades from wreckage. "This isn't over," she muttered to her lieutenant, John Harper, who crouched beside her. "They knocked out half our equipment in the first wave," Harper replied, checking his rifle. "We're fighting with scraps." Torres smirked grimly. "Scraps are enough. Humans don't need fancy toys. We just need an enemy." Above them, a Concorde dropship descended, its metallic legs unfolding as it landed in the rubble. Alien soldiers, tall and insectoid, emerged, their movements precise and calculated. They spread out in formation, scanning the ruins with multi-lensed eyes. "Hold," Torres whispered, motioning to her team. The humans crouched in the shadows, holding their breath. As the aliens moved closer, the trap sprung. Improvised explosives, hidden in the rubble, detonated with deafening force. Shrapnel ripped through the Concorde ranks, their energy shields flickering as they collapsed under the sheer ferocity of the blast. Humans poured out from their hiding spots, a chaotic mix of militia and civilians armed with scavenged weapons. The aliens, trained for calculated warfare, faltered in the face of the ambush. Their formation dissolved as humans swarmed them, using terrain, sheer numbers, and brute force to overwhelm their advanced weaponry. "Fall back," one Concorde soldier hissed into their communicator, their voice tinged with panic. But there was nowhere to fall back to. In the command chamber of the Luminera, Captain Velik stood frozen, staring at the tactical display. What should have been an easy operation was unraveling. "Report," he barked. "Resistance is more organized than anticipated," Salthra replied, her voice steady but her tentacles twitching. "They've adapted quickly using guerrilla tactics. Our troops are sustaining heavy losses." "How?" demanded Treval, who loomed nearby. "Their technology is centuries behind ours." "It's not their technology," Salthra said grimly. "It's them. These humans, they adapt too quickly. Every strike we make, they respond faster. Every weakness they find, they exploit." On the display, red icons representing Concorde forces blinked out one by one. "Withdraw the ground forces," Velik ordered. "We'll regroup and reassess." Treval scowled. "You're proposing retreat? Against primitives?" "Against survivors," Velik corrected. "And if we don't start treating them seriously, we'll lose more than a battle. We'll lose this war." On Earth's surface, Torres stood amidst the wreck. The Concorde fleet had underestimated Earth. No longer was it just a primitive world teeming with dangerous wildlife. It had become a battlefield where humans fought back with a ferocity that was as alien to the Concorde as their own technologies. In the remote deserts of the American Southwest, a Concorde battalion had just experienced another painful lesson. Commander Rallin A.K., a seasoned veteran of the Concorde military, surveyed the aftermath of an engagement. His troops had been ambushed by a human force using only rudimentary weapons, rifles, explosive charges, and improvised drones built from scavenged parts. Yet, Despite the seeming simplicity, the humans fought like they were born to war. "We've lost half our squadron," Rallinicate muttered, pacing among the wreckage. The once pristine Concorde armor now lay scattered, mangled by explosives and expertly placed shots. The humans, surprisingly agile in their element, had drawn them into a trap. "Should we withdraw, Commander?" asked Lieutenant Garmel, his voice tense. Rallinecate's multi-lensed eyes narrowed as he scanned the horizon. "Not yet. They will come for us again. But this time we'll be ready." Meanwhile, aboard the Luminera, Salthra's frustration boiled over. The reports were relentless. Human resistance wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. They had taken Concorde weapons, repurposed them, and even begun to adapt Concorde tactics. The once predictable battlefield had become a labyrinth of traps, ambushes, and surprise strikes. The Concorde's superior technology was proving useless against an enemy that knew how to fight with everything they had. "The humans are studying us," Salthra said, her voice cold. "Every skirmish they learn. Every loss they adapt. Our advantage is slipping away. We need reinforcements," Captain Velik muttered, rubbing his temples. The strain of the campaign was evident in his voice. He had expected this to be over by now, simple conquest. Instead, they were bogged down in a war of attrition against an enemy that refused to die. "We cannot afford to delay," Salthra said, her tone hardening. "We must move quickly, or we risk being trapped in their war." Back on Earth, the humans weren't just fighting, they were innovating. Elena Torres sat in a makeshift command center, a gutted underground bunker that once served as a military base. Around her, a diverse team of engineers, soldiers, and civilians worked with feverish energy, piecing together the wreckage of Concorde technology. The air buzzed with the frantic energy of engineers reverse engineering alien weapons, hacking into captured Concorde data streams, and designing new countermeasures. "We've got their power grids," one of the engineers called out from the corner. "We can shut down their shields for short bursts." Torres looked up from her console. "Perfect. That'll give us the opening we need." Harper, standing nearby, was scanning through a tactical feed. "Commander, it looks like Rallinecate's battalion is regrouping. We've got a chance to hit them again. But we'll need to act fast." Torres smiled grimly. "Then let's make them regret underestimating us." The next strike came as a surprise. Human ingenuity was not only in their weapons but in their tactics. The war had dragged on for months now, and the Concorde forces were losing ground faster than they could comprehend. Every time they thought they had secured a victory, the humans adapted, learned, and counterattacked with devastating precision. Their tactics were unconventional, born of a planet where survival was an art and defeat never came without a cost. In the heart of the Pacific Ocean, on an island where the remnants of a Concorde warship had crash-landed, the humans were preparing their final strike. The Concorde's high command had deployed its most advanced weapon, the Nexus cannon, designed to incapacitate entire planets with a burst of focused energy. It was supposed to be the final blow to Earth. Elena Torres stood on the edge of a cliff, watching the distant glow of the energy weapon powering up on the horizon. The cannon's massive core hummed ominously. This was it, the endgame. "We're outnumbered," Harper said, his voice grim as he scanned the terrain. "We've got one shot at this." "We've had one shot at everything since the beginning," Torres replied, her eyes narrowing on the energy core. "And every time we've fought back. We're not stopping now." The operation was a suicide mission. The humans had infiltrated the base housing the Nexus cannon, human and alien soldiers working together, weaving through the wreckage to disable the weapon. But Concorde's security systems were formidable. It would take a perfect strike at exactly the right moment to make a difference. Back on the Luminera, Captain Velik paced restlessly in his command chamber. The situation had reached a breaking point. Every day that passed, more Concorde soldiers fell to ambushes and sabotage. What should have been a simple conquest had turned into a battle for survival. The superweapon was their last hope for victory. "We can't keep losing troops," Velik said, his voice tight with frustration. "Activate the Nexus cannon immediately." Salthra's tendrils twitched with unease. "Captain, we cannot underestimate them. These humans, I'm not underestimating them, Velik snapped. I'm ending this. At the Nexus Cannon Control Center, a human engineer, bruised and bloodied, bypassed a series of security protocols. The countdown was already at 3 minutes. He worked quickly, his hands steady despite the danger. Almost there, he muttered, sweat beading on his forehead. Just need to, he grinned. Got it. The superweapons systems flickered and then shut down completely. The countdown paused. A wave of silence passed over the room, as humans and Concord soldiers alike stared at the disabled machine. What did you do? Demanded a Concord officer, his voice strained. The engineer wiped his hands on his uniform. I think we just won. Back on the Luminera, the command crew watched in disbelief as the superweapon's energy output vanished from the display. Salthra was the first to speak. Impossible. They shouldn't have been able to disable it. Captain Velik stood motionless, his face a mask of disbelief. For months, they had been on the offensive, and yet it was humanity that had outlasted them, not just surviving but defeating their technological supremacy. Withdraw, Velik ordered finally, his voice hollow. Get us out of here. There's nothing left to fight for. On Earth, the humans watched as the last of the Concord ships began retreating. The war was over not by conquest, but by sheer willpower. They had not only survived, they had forced the Concord to retreat. The victory was bittersweet, but it was undeniable. Elena Torres stood on a makeshift platform, addressing a crowd of soldiers and civilians. We've shown the galaxy that Earth doesn't bow to anyone. We don't break. We don't surrender.